All right. Hello, I'm Mary Baznik, and this presentation is from Chapter 7, Reframing Social Cultural Theory, Identity, Power, and Agency for Making Literacy Real. When I think of social cultural theory, I always think of community and the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. When it comes to a child's education, there are many people involved in that child's growth and development. Several researchers are responsible for the contributions to this theory, but the main ones are Piaget and Vygotsky. Jean Piaget um, addressed the idea that was stated in our text as children constructed knowledge from their experiences across a series of stages based on their development level. This idea challenged that a child didn't have to be a specific age to reach a developmental level. It was whenever they were independent enough to do that skill on their own. Vygotsky, on the other hand, recognized that social interactions were the reason that knowledge was acquired, and he addressed this through the zone of proximal development, or ZPD for short. In this stage, a child can learn with the help of an expert, such as teacher, a parent, or a community member, until they can do the skill themselves. This is an example of ZPD. I'm not going to play this video due to time, but this child doesn't necessarily have to be a certain age to put the cap back on the bottle, but she's instructed by an expert and is able to complete the task with help. Finally, Barbara Rogoff addressed the role of community in constructing knowledge. She defined communities on page 141, as groups of people who have some common and continuing organization, values, understanding, history, and practices. She goes on to list these three things on page 141, what is required to have a community. It requires structured communication. It develops cultural practices and tradition. It involves generations that move through it. All of these, Rogoff then goes on to discuss participation through apprenticeship, guided participation, and participatory appropriation. Guided participation is most closely related to the social cultural theory because it follows that social interaction of a child modeling what an adult or an expert is doing in everyday activities. And by observing the adult, the child repeats the behavior. So these ideas lay the foundation for social cultural theory and how it can be used in a classroom setting. I'm going to play this video right here, which is actually a presentation done by Barbara Rogoff. And it's really interesting, so I hope you enjoy it.
For centuries, scientists have made discoveries by keenly observing the world around them. Observation is one of the most important scientific methods. It is also one of the most important ways that people learn. Children everywhere are curious about the world, and they learn by paying attention to what is happening around them. Researchers at the University of California, Santa Cruz have discovered that some children are especially keen observers of surrounding events.
Mayan children do pay attention to other people's activities more so than do European American children.
Guatemalan Mayan children were twice as likely to pay attention to a nearby demonstration of how to make a toy using a rubber band for energy. They were attentive while they waited for their turn to make a different toy.
When middle-class European American children were in the same situation, they showed much less keen attention.
The Mayan children were more attentive and they also learned more. They were later able to make the toy that their sister or brother had made, with less help from an adult, than middle-class European American children. The researchers have found a similar pattern of keen attention and skillful learning among Mexican heritage children in the United States, especially those whose families were from indigenous heritage communities.
In indigenous communities, specifically in Mexico or North and Central America, children are often engaged in learning situations where they are involved in the activities of their communities and expected to observe even when they are not told to pay attention to the events that are taking place around them. And this contrasts with the pattern found in middle class European American communities, where children are often segregated from adult activities.
The keen attention of children from Mexican and Guatemalan backgrounds is a resource for their own learning. Their keen attention can also serve as a model for other children to learn to pay attention to what is going on around them.
So, as you can see, by observation, the students feel more involved and are more likely to participate and be interested. So, this leads us to how can this be applied to the classroom? And one of the ways to do that is building organization in the classroom and building that setting of community right away. So I also found this lesson plan right here, which is something I do the very first day of school. And if you've never used this website, readwritethink.org, it is amazing for resources and if you need references on any sort of topic. But I do this lesson with my students the very first day of school, and it's about building the rules of the classroom, so you end up building a community. It involves participation, no right or wrong answers, and guidance from an expert. Students get to work together to make the rules, and there's even a way to include literacy in this, which I believe is right here. They even give a book list of how to do this that you can teach, especially with the younger students, kindergarten through second grade. So that is a great way to do it. I'm not going to click on all these, but this is another excellent resource. Edutopia talks about using sharing circles, and that was discussed throughout the chapter as well, and how it helps students to build a sense of trust for one another. Students are challenged then to ask questions and come up with their own answers, and don't have to feel the pressure of if they were right or wrong or anything. And last, I also found this great website as called We Are Teachers. And she actually gives a bunch of different ways to promote community in the classroom. So if you're ever interested, this is another great resource to use in building community in the classroom. These ideas all utilize a lot of literacy skills and also inspire compassion and kindness. And those are important elements to help a community run efficiently. And so this leads to the major takeaways of the chapter. It takes a village to help a child feel involved in a classroom community. This starts with the zone of proximal development, and from there that will encourage more independence, and by helping students to participate and ask questions and challenge answers, and to also build a sense of trust. And just to finish, these are the excellent resources I used throughout this presentation, just if you want a refresher on that. And it just is a great way to build an effective classroom community and establishing that social cultural theory. If you are interested in learning more about that video that was done by Rogoff's research team, I've included the link right here as well. So thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any further questions. Thank you.